All right, cyber traders, welcome on back here this Monday, March 1st, top of the month to everybody, I should say. Welcome on back here for our afternoon meeting. Let's get a quick sound check just to begin. Make sure everyone can hear me loud and clear. Great to see Chuck, Grant, a few of our students chatting away right now. Michael, Norman, Leda, Grant, David, Kathleen, Lori, great to see you all. Perfect and loud and clear from all as well. So let's hop right into the thick of things here. We have an old friend making a pretty familiar move. This Kodak trade here. I say familiar, not based on the pop. I say it more based on the dump off right away after. Unfortunately, this stock is known for that, but we've done really well with that stock in the past, or with this stock in the past, though. You could just see going back into, July, perhaps even August of last year, a huge pop. I think that they are dipping into the vaccine, competition at the time, let's say. The news that came out this morning, even dating back to pre-market at 8:22 Eastern on this Kodak stock, Eastman Kodak says regarding execution of long-term term loan credit agreement, the company entered board rights agreement with KLIM. All right. Well, I thought there was a little bit more to it aside from that. I thought it had to do with like thermometers or something to do with that. Yeah, I see a news report. I'm reading down a little bit further here. I'm actually reading back from Wednesday of last week. They ended up reporting a licensing deal with a company for production of infrared thermometers. So that's the latest on Kodak. But nonetheless, we ended up just seeing them make a nice pop right around 2:15 Eastern time, popped essentially from 9 up to the high of the day, 9:54. So I'll put this on our list with hopes of this, making a new move for us heading into the final hour of the day. The pullback's no surprise. Hopefully it's not the end of the run. If it is, then we'll just find something else to trade. But given the recent pop and activity, no problem just putting this on our main list to begin. All right, so we did pretty well for a Monday. I will say that as well, not just the market in general. Dow's up over 700 points and counting. But we ended up doing pretty well on a few stocks that were up early in pre-market off of news that were on our morning watch list. So let's start the SOS first, and then we'll jump to a couple of others. But man, this SOS trade, it looks like it became pretty choppy after the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes, but that's exactly what we, train for. So we ended up seeing the stock break out shortly after the market opened up. It was up big in pre-market. It was building up going into the market open from support at 550. But right away after the market opened up, it ended up making the first of its like 3 or 4 breakouts heading into the morning here. So we ended up seeing this blast right away, like from like 620, I think it was the first iceberg order at the time from 620, but you can't really see it that well from the chart. More so than anything, the next breakout led to the higher high. That was off 650, right? It popped and dropped from 650 here, but a big volume spike, a lot of buying. So if and when it does re-break above 650, you hope to see not just a higher high, but this early in the morning, a new move up, new run. So, this ended up treating us really well. I think this had a lot of volume on the ask that it broke through pretty early in the market open. So fortunately, it didn't lead to a dump off. It led to a huge run up, which is what you would expect and hope for. So on this SOS trade, I just think that it's pretty exhausted heading into this afternoon. Ended up essentially making that move from 6 to 7 plus, 732 the high. But normally for a stock that makes this big of a move in pre-market, then after the market opens, then it dumps off. A little second wind right here, but I wouldn't expect much more for today. It wouldn't shock me come rest of this week if this can make a new move back up like it did going back into mid-February here. So good sideless stock, definitely. Just I'm going to see if there's anything making a more recent run, almost like Kodak, just heading into this afternoon. More recent breakout, a steadier push so far. Hopefully that could be on Workhorse. Workhorse here, not so much on the way up, actually. I'm thinking more on the way down should it re-break below the 1650 level. I was watching this off of earnings going into this morning, and of course from last week, all of the FUD with like the postal office deal and Oshkosh, and the government wants to kind of block that deal. We'll see what happens. We ended up seeing earnings even this morning. They ended up missing, and we ended up seeing a bit of a drop heading into the market open. But with that in mind, you would anticipate to see more sell-off at some point. So it looks like a messy chart, at least before the breakout going into like 12 o'clock Eastern time or prior to that. But I ended up taking my best trade of the day on this Workhorse trade. I ended up shorting this from the market open. I got in right off 1644, my entry price. I was looking in between, kind of like right between 1650, 1640. Big selling from pre-market activity here, I think it was even. So if we have enough time tomorrow, if you folks are interested, I mean, there might be better trades, but we'll certainly have a chance to cover this Workhorse stock, the trade at least from this morning inside our Traders Talk workshop tomorrow. So for all of us live inside the trading room, any of our current trial members joining us here for the week, you folks will have access to that. We'll probably have a chance to cover that tomorrow morning. But man, this ended up pulling back down after the breakout here. So it wouldn't shock me should this re-break below 1650 to support to see it, really make a new low, not new low of the day, but to see it drop down perhaps towards 16, perhaps 1610. That's if it can re-break below the 1650 here. Given the activity across the day, I wouldn't, mind putting this on our side list. Come back to it at the very end. Just looks a little choppy here across the last hour or so. So I'm more hopeful than anything on this trade just to see it make a new move on the way down. But we'll come back to it later on and see. All right, I'm just looking at my Benzinga Pro right now, just checking to see if there's any stocks that are actually popping alongside the Kodak right now as I'm just going through. Not a whole lot just yet. I'm sure there will be a couple that, make some moves as I'm going from top to bottom. But let's go across the percent gainers list, folks. You got a stock up over 140+% right now. It was breaking higher heading into the afternoon, but pretty damn expensive. The MORF trade, I know Fausto called this out shortly after the market opened, just popped up on our radar. So at that point, it was relatively slow, and he was just fishing through, and he saw this, just said, look at this stock. It got a huge spread, though, very thin orders on the book, and like I'd said before, pretty expensive, but it's pretty rare to see a stock this priced to make a gap up or make a squeeze up that much, I should say. So let me just take a quick look on Benzinga Pro. I don't mind just checking for curiosity. So MORF, I think it was earnings based, but alongside that, the company also reported positive interim results from a phase 1 clinical trial of their, drug. I don't know what they're treating, but phase 1 study. I guess they ended up passing FDA approval for that. So nice pop, good reaction. Yeah, just like I said, pretty expensive. It's interesting to see at least. I would only imagine for that stock to pull back, if not tomorrow, then later on today. It is shortable, I reckon, but just untradeable for the most part otherwise. AMTX heading into the afternoon, trying to make a squeeze back up. It did most of its damage from this morning, popped from essentially 12, lifted off from around that consolidation up towards just about 15, and broke higher heading into the afternoon. But for right now, just again, kind of same thing. It's a Monday. I would hope to see some stocks that can move with the market, making a push up higher. But for right now, this isn't going to really cut it. All right, we got the CAN stock here, which will segue me right over to my Bitcoin chart. And this time I should be good to go for all of us live inside the room. Should pop up in just a second. So we'll get back to CAN in a second, but this brings me to Bitcoin. I always like to show this, especially from where we last left off going into the end of the week Friday. And I'll be honest, I was wrong. I was expecting a move down towards right around this red line here on the 6-hour graph. That's at 200 EMA, roughly around 41, 42. For all of us live inside the trading room, can you hear me? I might need to just tell one of our members to log out, log back in. All right, good. All right, no problem there. All right, so getting back to Bitcoin, well, I was hoping to see this make a pop, but, I should say, and it did. But I thought it was going to drop back a little bit more at first. I did buy a little bit more yesterday morning. My price on Bitcoin, I got in, it was only like $1,000, but I got in at 43,600. I thought there was going to be a little bit more slippage, but ended up making a sweet bounce shortly after I got in Sunday morning here. Ooh, what the heck is this? I don't know what all this garbage is. Reload this screen. There we go. All right. So, yeah, more or less with CAN, we ended up seeing CAN make a big pop back up, perhaps with the market, perhaps with Bitcoin, perhaps with both. But CAN, Riot, Mara all squeezed up shortly after the market opened up here today. And CAN, I guess now kind of pulling back, but it was holding pretty strong near its highs. Riot up 20+% and counting right now, still holding pretty strong towards its highs. And I'd assume Mara to do the same pretty much as Riot. So, listen, if you're day trading Riot, I'd say that's a level 5 stock. If you're a level 5 trader in our room, you know who you are, right? Don't kid yourself. But as a swing trade opportunity, look for a dip. At this point, it's up 20%. So this would not even be a good swing trade opportunity, let alone a day trade opportunity, in my opinion. So maybe I'll keep these in mind for the rest of the week. But for right now, I'll pass. Canon, I thought, could have been the better one of the three, just given the price. It's cheaper compared to those. So I'd be more interested in this, if anything. This OSS kind of at the highs right now. Don't get me wrong, but that's pretty much it. You know what? I guess it's also approaching a resistance back from last week, I think it was, or the week before, 927, the high back from the 19th, and then on the 22nd, the high here, 916. So creeping up closer there, I guess. But We'll see if there's anything more filled in on the order book. SOS trade from earlier. We talked about that just before. I'd only imagine that to pull back, if not just flatten out. Ooh, this APEN ended up making a nice push, more so heading into the early afternoon. And as you can see now, kind of dying off here. So we're not going to put this on our main list, but just to go over it pretty quickly, at least, this popped really early in pre-market. It was, dumping off going into the open. So I would only expect for it to flatten out, after the open. I wouldn't expect for it to make some, big successful run right away. Oftentimes for these pre-market pump and dump plays, they'll end up making, if they do make a move, they would make a move more so heading into like the late morning, the early afternoon, this even later, the mid-afternoon here. So kind of caught us off guard, broke higher right around like 620-ish, 625, and then took off right from there. So this was actually a pretty good trade heading into the early afternoon. I was hopeful to see this kind of hold near its highs heading into 230, but obviously it dumped back down. So I'd maybe keep it on your side list, but at this rate, I'd only expect for it to continue to drop off, and it might just do the same tomorrow. Maybe later in the week, you'll see it make another squeeze back up, perhaps. James asking, did you change graphics seeing Bitcoin currently? I took it off my screen there, James. Could everybody here live see my platform, or do you still see Bitcoin? Jason says looks good. All right, James, just do me a favor, log out, log back in. It may have gotten stuck on your end there. Doesn't happen often, but usually a quick reset will do that, or we'll fix the issue, I should say. Ooh, one of Jerry's favorite stocks here inside our trading room, Vuzi, making a nice push today. I don't know for what news, but still holding strong near its highs, trading about 10,000 shares per minute in volume. I don't mind adding this to our list so far. We only have Kodak on our main list here. So Vuzi will join it. Why not? I'd probably still consider this more of like a level 3 stock. If anything, it's flattened out, slowed down a bit. But if it breaks higher, if the stars align for this trade, it's not going to be like a slow, like level 1 or 2 trade. It'll be like level 3 to 4, I'd imagine. CLSK, really low in volume traded per minute. So if you're kind of comparing the two, look at this. This is like just under 2,000 shares per minute the stock's trading, CLSK. So I would much rather trade that Vuzi right now, looking at the two. GBS from earlier, quick pop, and just that was it. Mavis up 18.5%. I'd only imagine to see a lot that's up today, just given the way the market is right now, folks. So if I didn't really go over any stock that looks good, that's up big, that you see, type it in the chat board. Let me know. That goes across the board for all of us on social media, Facebook Live, YouTube, alongside all of us here in the trading room. I'm going to jump over to the losers list here in a second. Norman here calling out the AMRS, then Chuck with LOTZ. We'll go to those two first, then I'll hop over. Yeah, AMRS up 16% almost, and at the highs, testing $16. Yeah, I'll add this. Not trading a whole lot of volume per minute, but it should it break that iceberg order at 16, that could lead to a pretty big move. Good setup. And lots pushed through 10 minutes ago. Came back to test. Tongue twister sentence there, Chuck. Descent trend up 12%. Yeah, I guess it's trading about 17K per minute, but that's, with the volume filled here, I reckon off 10. So prior to that, a lot less. Good stock to keep in mind. I don't mind adding this to our list. Again, we don't really have too many to focus on so far. I think lots is pretty similar in the sense of trend and liquidity to the AMRS even. All right, let's jump over to the losers list. I know Fausto is looking at this ATNX trade as a potential dead cat bounce. And it did bounce up a little bit, but right now I think it's like right back towards its open price. And it is shortable. So whereas normally these stocks are hard to borrow that are at the top of the losers list, this one is easy to borrow. So with this dropping off down towards its open price, pretty close to its low already, I don't mind adding this right back to our list. This ATNX trade. I don't know why it's down 50+%. I'll jump to Benzinga Pro for this. This being the top percent loser right now. I forgot what the news was on this. I believe Fausto went over it earlier this morning. So in comparison, I think that MORF trade got FDA approval on phase 1 study. The FDA denied ATNX on their application for, I guess, a drug to treat metastatic breast cancer. It's the snippet here from 7:15 this morning on ATNX. So what goes up, or one goes up, one goes down. Ended up seeing this ATNX squeeze up, I mean, at least shortly after the open, but right back down it goes. This could be a pretty good continuation heading into the afternoon here as a short. OTRK. I thought Fausto made a typo with this stock. I've never seen this one before. OTRK, another dead cat bounce. This one trying to pop right now. The spreads are like so big though. Again, it's like, you know, there isn't a point of like me putting this on the list. If you're a level 5 trader and you find that to be a very convincing setup, then you know who you are. I'd rather trade stocks like CRMD here, still shortable, dropping down pretty nicely, almost just like the ATNX. This one a little bit further away from its low of the day, off $8, but still really tradable. 20,000 share bid at 850, so good support showing. Pretty interesting. I don't think I've put two of these stocks on our list in one day in a long time. I mean, like the ATNX, the CRMD, two of the top percent losers, both shortable. Don't find that too often. And how about Mankind? MNKD, same thing. You know, I saw a little bounce on this trade. I took like 7 or 8 cents on this from the bounce, but pulling back down right now below 450. And if it could break below 445 level from the chart, I can only imagine we'll see a faster drop. All right, cool. Workhorse did not break back below 1650. Let's just put it that way. That's why we call it a setup. It has to set itself up for the break first. So Workhorse kind of squeezed back up stock from our side list so far. OCGN today dropped off quite a bit. I watched this going into the morning, took a couple trades on it. I took more losses than wins because I ended up making a silly mistake following this on the way down. I was looking for a bounce from 10. It just was choppy and eventually broke down even more. I took like 2 different losses of like 6 and then 5 cents. And then I think it just crashed right away after I got out. But again, good side list stock, just very choppy right now, pretty flat. And folks, I think that just about does it from me. I don't really see anything else that looks good across the percent gainers or losers list. If there's anything that I missed or anything else that you see otherwise, let me know. How about the AMTX from James? And moving on up right now, I mean, over the last, 5 or 10 minutes, that's why I always like to toss it back to you folks here. So probably from the last time I saw this stock, the AMTX, it was just choppy, not a whole lot going on, but making a really strong move up right now. This is a really good call. I'm going to put this near the top of our list right now, testing 16 major iceberg. I'd expect a false breakout the first attempt, and then look to see if it could re-break later on. From Norman, TMBR also, he says, it's a cheapie, which I like. It's popping right now heading into the afternoon, which I also like. All right, so we'll add this as well. We're starting to get a big list here, folks. This might be getting to the point where I'll just kind of cut 1 or 2 that looked pretty good at the time, but now at this point, the timber trade I like, AMTX I like a lot. COS was flat, moving up now, says Mike. Yeah, just too big of a spread, though. I'm going to pass on this. The only one out of those I'd be interested in is AMC. I did much better today on AMC than I did on Friday. So I'm very thankful for that. But right now, though, it hasn't done a whole lot since, unless if you see like GameStop, which I guess I stopped myself in my own tracks here as I say that, because GameStop, it kind of is starting to pop up. Just made a sharp little pop off 114. If this can keep going, then I can imagine the others to go with it. AMC and then BlackBerry too, I'd imagine. Those two in particular, we ended up trading more so heading into today. BlackBerry, I failed to mention, made a big pop heading into the afternoon. I think for now, we'll kind of keep them on the side. Chuck saying from his call out here on lots, LOTZ, not happening. It's flattened out. All right. Well, you know, that could have been one of the ones I'd say, you know, maybe just scratch off if there's something else that looks better. How many do we have in total here? We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 in total. So it's not as if I have like 12 or 15 on our list. I don't mind keeping it as is, folks. I mean, the lots trade still looks decent for right now. Just if it dumps off, then I'd move on to something else. Definitely flat for the meantime, Chuck. Sun W I saw from before here too. I forgot to mention this. It made a nice move from earlier today, but also pretty flat right now as well. All right, folks, I think that just about does it here across the board, across both ends here. So I think in total, like I said, we have about like 8 or 9 stocks to watch and trade heading into this afternoon. If there's anything else that we'll look to trade or follow up on, hopefully it'll be after like 3 o'clock, 3:15 Eastern time. We'll try and start and stick with this list. I don't want to finish up this list then all of a sudden, unless if it's a stock that's making like, an AMTX type move. Unless if that's the case, I don't want you to force a trade out there. Otherwise, this is a pretty decent list to begin. So, if anything, I'll start off with like the AMTX and perhaps like, Kodak, if that could break higher later on. And then, if none of these other, if otherwise none of these other stocks move heading into the next 10, 15 minutes, then at that point, I'll rescan the market, see if there's anything more, moving at that point. All right, so for all of us on social media, Facebook Live, YouTube, make sure that you like, subscribe, notify right on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/cybertradingu. Traders Talk is not going to be on social media like it was last week. So if you're interested in joining us for tomorrow's workshop, make sure that you go right down to the link below on the banner and sign up. Got the VUSI trade already breaking higher, folks. So I'm going to finish up right now. I'll jump back on the mic in about like 10 or so minutes. Take care.